Welcome to Reconciling SaaS, the interview series where I talk to accountants with innovative business models and growth strategies who are showing what success looks like in the industry today. I'm Guy Pearson. I'm a recovering accountant, the co-founder and CEO of Ignition, and we're joined today by Michael Lee, CEO of Reconciled, co-founder advisory at Humley. Welcome, Michael. It's great to have you.
Great. Thanks for having me, Guy.
No dramas, mate. So we first met, I'm trying to get this right. I know I was on Friday Night Lights in a podcast with yourself not so long ago. I think it was 2020. I think it was sort of during COVID. But we first met when I think you signed up or you're doing a trial to be an Ignition customer. And I think that was probably 6 or 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
Do you have any recollection? Like, I didn't do your demonstration, I don't think, which is probably a great thing for both of us. But I'm trying to remember. I think the first time we met in person was last week. But
yeah,
I would love to know. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've done video or two, and whether interviews or on the podcast together or whatever. And yeah, I've had you on. I think I've had you on Friday Night Lights when I was running that show with Hector Garcia years ago. But yeah, Reconciled's been a Ignition customer for many years, and so yeah, it's been wonderful. We're Ignition's still an active part of our internal technology stack, so it's pretty cool.
So we're going to get to tech stacks later on, but I'm obviously thrilled about that with all bias included there. But I think tech stack has been one of your sort of talking points, so I want to make sure we cover that off a bit later. So I mean, we met first time last week. You look great on the dance floor at QBC. Just want to throw that out there. But you're also at Precon last week. Did you have a good time? What do you think of that event? I'm curious, just I want some honest feedback. I didn't prep you for this question, by the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, Precon was great. What a great hack. I think honestly, it's better to do an event like that than to have a big booth. If you're a vendor and you want to get a little secret, is get a bunch of vendors together, throw up a pre-conference party, get all those email registrations. Those are all your leads, and serve them drinks, and they'll be forever in your debt, right? So it was a great time to connect with people that were attending the conference, and frankly, there were people that I knew were only just in Vegas to hang out and not really attend the conference itself. So it was great to see him at the pre-con as well. So it was a wonderful time, and you know, your guy Ryan Embry here in the States is a wonderful person. He's been an amazing guy just to get to know, and an amazing individual, human being, and really cares about the profession and cares about, you know, obviously Ignition and the company. So you have a really great stateside kind of person representing you at a lot of these conferences, which is cool.
Appreciate that, and shout out to Ryan and the rest of our North America based team, which is growing. It's growing quite a lot. I think when you first joined, it was probably Tom and maybe Max or maybe Ryan around about then. And Lizzie perhaps, and now we're sort of like 60 people in North America, so it's changed a little bit since then. They don't need me anymore. I have to ask to come. So you ran a panel on thoughtful automation for accounting firms of all size. Can you give us like the TLDR of the panel?
Yeah, that was the last talk I did. I was on a panel that was run by Zuni, and I had other firm owners, Kenji, as well as Jody Grundam on there. And so she basically put me and these two other guys on there, and a swath of different experience. Both of those other two panelists are years from public accounting. I actually don't have a public accounting background, so I was able to come from a different aspect. But it was a great panel. It was really sharing our stories of running our firms and how we do technology selection, and how we think about technology as we grow our firms, and what is the right time and decisions around technology. Because as you have a growing firm, it's not just you as a firm owner making the decisions anymore. As you probably know, running a business, as it gets bigger, you're really not the one that should be making most of the decisions. Your leaders and the second level leaders and third level leaders should actually be the ones making decisions, because they actually implement those technology solutions, and it impacts their day-to-day job. So used to be early on in the first 2, 3, 4 years, I could come back from a conference or back from a workshop or researching a technology online, want to implement it, and really was involved in that decision. Now, any major technology decision, I need to pass through my president, all of my accounting services leaders, right, on my internal controller, and they really are the ones that decide whether we make the buy or not. So it's funny. I tell vendors, hey, there's certain size firms when you reach out to them, don't reach out to the owner. That it's the CEO is kind of useless on the technology decision. Reach out to the reach out to the onboarding implementer. Reach out to the head of customer success. Reach out to the internal controller. Reach out to the head sales guy. Those are all the people making decisions on technology for the firm now, not generally not the CEO. So that's just very, very interesting. But that panel really was focused on that technology decisions, how they impact your firm as you grow, and where do we see technology going in the life cycle of firms in the future right now.
Okay, cool. I've got a couple of questions off the back of that, if I might. You mentioned obviously not I forget the words that you used, but you moved from commerce into professional practice. Now we won't reveal ages or anything, but that was a little while ago. What prompted that move? From sort of, it looked like you sort of came up through financial controllership into being CFO, moved into CFO as a service, then on into a firm owner. Like, tell us about that journey.
Yeah, I got introduced to accounting when I was really young and early in high school, and my brother-in-law now was dating my sister, and he was an accountant. Introduced me. I'd never met an accountant before in my life, and so having a typical Asian immigrant upbringing, I thought I was going to be a doctor or an engineer, and was introduced to business and accounting by him, and really found myself falling in love with numbers and with the language of business. I call accounting the language of business, right? And so then really grew myself, into bookkeeping and then controllership and eventually CFO. I was CFO of a major company here in the US by the time I was in my mid-20s, and helped them grow from 10 to $40 million in 4 years, a really short time frame. So when I left that, I had moved to Vermont, a little tiny state that my wife is from. It's one of the smallest populated states in the US. And so moved there, started doing consulting work on my own, consulting as a fractional CFO to different companies in Vermont. And every time I went to a company, this is what I would usually find, and maybe it's the same in Australia or New Zealand or in Europe, but every small business owner is trying to do the books themselves, or when they're sick of doing the books themselves, they give it to somebody they trust, like a front office receptionist, their spouse, a girlfriend, a board member, usually somebody not trained, but trusted. So I call it the trusted but not trained problem. They're a trusted person, the owner trusts with numbers, but they don't know what they're doing. So I would go in as a fractional CFO, fix the books for 2 or 3 months, and then finally be able to do consulting work. And I realized after a few years of that, there's got to be a better way. So launched Reconciled in 2016 to try to make a better way. And that's really where the vision started. And really the big vision of Reconciled has been, how could we make Reconciled synonymous with small business bookkeeping? So if a small business owner in the US thinks, I need bookkeeping, I need small business accounting, they immediately think about our brand. So we really are focused from a brand perspective and a marketing perspective, and less from a tactical practitioner perspective. I would not consider myself the best accountant in the world. I would not say that everybody that comes to me is going to get the best tax savings or the best set of books. That's not what we're selling at all. We are really trying to sell an experience, a reconciled experience that every one of our customers goes through. And we believe we can curate an experience that is unique and different to all of our competitors. And that's really, really what we're trying to sell. And that happens to include bookkeeping services and accounting services. But maybe one day it includes a lot more than that, or maybe it includes no accounting in the future. I'm not really sure, but it really is our brand that we're trying to make synonymous right now with the whole idea of bookkeeping services.
Cool. Now, in terms of the growth story, like I know the business is quite large now. You mentioned you had a president and seniors. How big's the actual company on a headcount basis today?
We have about 55 total team members scattered throughout the US, and a quarter of those are actually in South America, predominantly in Argentina. So we started doing what we call nearshore hiring about 1.5 years ago in Argentina, and working with several vendor partners in Argentina. So we're really bullish on Argentina and South America in general. And we could see ourselves getting to nearing 50%, if not higher, of our future leaders and future team members being South American based.
That's pretty cool. And you've done some M&A along the way, as well as growing organically. And you just mentioned your brand story there as well. What's a like, why the M&A piece? I guess I'm curious. Like, how did that work, and how did that all fall into it? I know you talk about this quite a lot, and obviously there's many considerations when you think about it. But why did you bolt on some M&A? Why did you go that path?
Yeah, so M&A has been coming to M&A has been a very interesting journey for us. I really didn't start thinking about it till the beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. Right as we were watching the pandemic circle the globe and maybe come to the U.S., we were unsure of that. The U.S. was kind of later in responding to it. I began putting together a M&A playbook, and the reason why I did that was what happens in the US in the accounting profession is most firms stay very small. If you take out the big public four accounting firms, and you really have an average size firm of less than $500,000 a year in revenue, that's the average firm. So you're talking about one owner, a few staff, and that's it. And most accounting firms don't grow. If they do grow, it's at cost of living basis. They might grow 5% a year. A 10% year is a crazy fast growth period for an accounting firm in the US. Mm-hmm. So when I noticed that, I realized, okay, what stops most of these firms from growing? Well, one is the owner's hat. They're running the firm like an accountant and not like a business owner. That's one. And I had built Reconciled and run Reconciled like a business owner, not like an accountant. And then secondly, they can't imagine creating a layer of a management team that would allow them to extract themselves from being a practitioner and more being a CEO. And so we had done that at Reconcile. And then the third piece is, how do you continue to scale sales and marketing to acquire new customers and talent at the same time to serve those customers? And we had figured that out as well. So we had figured out most of those pieces. And so I put together an M&A playbook and said, hey, what if we went out and tried acquiring a few traditional accounting practices to see if we could convert them into our modern technology stack and our modern services model. So that's what we set out to do in 2020.
You've given quite a few sort of hints and tips on like how to get your firm ready for acquisition as well. There's an article you published, so how to make my small firm attractive to buyers, and you ran through recommendations on tech stack, recurring revenue contracts, profitability, documentation of processes, and delegating work to staff, which I think is just basically building a business, to your point, like a business owner that's ready for scale, as opposed to perhaps running it like an accountant. Do you want to add any more specifics into that, and then how that layers up into the firms that you have acquired and why you chose them?
Yeah, I think for the firm owner, getting into the mindset that I can't be and I shouldn't be the most valuable resource for this firm. And that's very hard for most accounting practitioners to say. I mean, when's the last time you met an accounting practitioner that didn't say they were the best accountant in the world for their customers? All of them believe that, right? You look in the mirror. That's why you went and started a software company, right? So and so it's like, the reality is most accountants really do genuinely believe they're the most valuable practitioner at their firm. And if you have that mindset, you do not have a business to sell. You can't sell yourself other than bill your hours or bill for your time or bill some kind of fees. Once you're gone and extracted from the firm, your firm's no longer valuable if you're the most valuable asset. So the firm owner, the seller, needs to think about, how do I make everybody else and my processes and my experience and everything else at the company more valuable than I could ever be, right? Probably no different than what you're thinking about Ignition is, how do I make Guy not a cog or even a requirement for Ignition to exist? You want Ignition to grow regardless of what happens to you. And for most firm owners, they don't think that way. They're not thinking, how does this thing grow whether or not Michael is here, whether or not Michael, the owner, the firm practitioner, is here. And unfortunately, most firms, they're structured to where if the owner wasn't there billing and spending time on tax returns, they would not exist. They would not be cash flow positive. They wouldn't have EBITDA. They wouldn't be able to pay the staff. And so that's an unfortunate scenario for most firms. So the ones that start thinking about it differently and trying to figure out, how do I actually hire people that could be more valuable than me? How can I spend my time being an advocate for the brand and for my team and helping my team build the processes necessary to scale, and stop relying on my smile, my own good looks, my whatever to make this firm work well? Then you have a business. You have an actual business versus, oh, you just have a bigger extension of yourself that you branded as an accounting firm, right? And that's what most accounting firms are right now. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing, is trying to get out of that I'm a service provider first mindset versus I'm a business owner mindset. And I happen to do accounting. I happen to know how to do accounting, but that's not the biggest skill set or value I should be bringing to this firm.
No, understood. And so I had a lot of talks. I was at TR Synergy and then straight into QuickBooks Connect. So two big accounting tech conferences. M&A was a huge kind of, let's say, groundswell of rumors and conversational topics, et cetera, et cetera. Someone dropped a quote, and I have no idea if it's founded in any truth, but like the number of firm owners looking to transact is up 10x on like 3 years ago. And so I think what's happening is you got certain people looking to retire, particularly as sort of, let's call it the baby boomers, maybe are in their 70s and are like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my lives, and having that realization as sort of a spur for some of that activity. How did you find, and where did you look for the firms that you acquired or that joined in with Reconcile?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there were a few things I did. One was I partnered with a buying broker. So there are brokers that specialize in the space in the US, and the buying broker's job is to take a lot of the groundwork out of your hands of finding the right qualified firm to buy. So you want to find a broker that knows the space. They have a Rolodex. They know where to find the Rolodex if they don't have a big one. They also know and can understand the type of firm you want to buy, and how to filter the thousands, if not tens of thousands, of firms for sale right now, and that are both publicly and privately for sale. How to filter them to be on your side as a buyer and prep them for the call. And so I worked with the buying broker for the first 3 deals I did. Now, he didn't bring to the table all the deals. He actually brought one of the 3 deals to the table. I brought the other 2, but he did bring at least 50 of the conversations of firms that he filtered for me, right? And so he was definitely beneficial. And secondly, he was my advocate in the whole process. So even on the firms I brought to the table for him to talk to, he made sure that they did meet the criteria I said I wanted, that I wasn't having rose-colored glasses or anything about these firms, especially if I knew the owners or if they were friends of mine. He could help me be objective and ask the hard questions. So that's a buying broker. And that's what, that's where I found. And then I started buying them. I've looked all over the country. So I'm actually fairly agnostic of where. The only places I'm not looking are the state of New York and the state of California, mainly because of tax compliance issues that I do not want to ever have to worry about. So those 2 states I ignore, and I will not, right now I'm not considering firms in those 2 states. But the rest of the country, I've bought one in Florida, I bought one in Arizona, I bought one in Tennessee, and I started my business in Vermont. So I've been in multiple places. I am on my 4th acquisition right now. I'm set to close it. It's in the Seattle, Washington area. So now I'll be on all corners of the country if I actually successfully close that one, which would be very interesting. So yeah,
almost like a U shape, right? Because I'm remembering Vermont's up in the northeast, and you got Seattle up in the northwest, and then the rest are on the south side. So interesting. Cover the whole country, mate. That's exciting.
Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing. Is the business broker that you used, the buying broker rather, did they used to run a firm? Like, why did you choose that one in particular? And obviously, you mentioned they were able to make sure you didn't have rose-colored glasses on, so you weren't looking at it going, "Oh, this looks great." They all look great. What sort of experience did this person have, and what would you recommend looking for if someone else wanted to engage one of these brokers?
Yeah, this buying broker had represented a much larger player in the space and helped them do several larger deals in the space as well. So I already knew of the track record. I met that broker when he actually reached out to me to consider selling to this bigger firm that he was representing. I ended up liking him a lot and just stayed in touch with him. And so when I heard that he left, I reached out to him and said, "Hey, could you represent us?" And so he did. And so that was great. So there are a number of ways to find a broker like that, and they're generally on LinkedIn, or they're actually sometimes they're repping on the sell side. They're repping firms for sale. So it's a matter of networking and reaching out to brokers that rep accounting firms. I would recommend somebody who specializes in accounting firms. It is selling an accounting firm and buying one, accounting firm is very different than buying a restaurant or a coffee shop or a retail store or something with fixed assets. Accounting firms in of itself are just intangible assets. There is no physical asset you're selling. It's really the goodwill of the brand, of the owner, of the customer lists, right, and of the staff. So you're not getting anything that the bank can take back, right? If things go south, you're really taking reputation. And then there's banks in the US that specialize in financing accounting firm acquisitions. So we have a plethora of capital and plethora of banks that would happily finance an accounting firm acquisition, which is really, really cool as well. So yeah, there's a number of avenues to go down in regards to how do you go about finding firms and to buy, and also, taking the work and minimizing it down for yourself as a firm owner. Remember, you're still running your firm during this whole time while you're looking for a buy or a sale, and you don't want the performance of your own firm to deteriorate because you're distracted on a process.
100%. Interesting. And what do you think a firm owner needs to be most mindful about if they're considering doing M&A? I have my views, having done a few little tuck-ins and had some experiences, but I'm curious on yourself.
Yeah, on the buying side, if you're going to
Yeah.
buy, the biggest impediment to the change you want to make will be the firm owner you're buying from. They will be the biggest number one hurdle, even though they just sold you their baby, and they don't own that baby anymore. They don't have the rights to it. They will treat it like their baby, and they will think they still have some say in what happens. And the reality is, they've spent 20, 30 years building this thing. This is a part of their identity, and it's really an identity transition issue. It has nothing to do with you personally as a buyer. But be ready. They're going to be the biggest. And sellers, I heard this quote. I did a panel on M&A at QB Connect last week, and somebody on the panel said, sellers are inherently liars. Not that they're trying to be liars. It's just that they're dressing up their business to look amazing to you, kind of like a first date. So they want to sell their firm. They may want you as the buyer. So your job as a buyer is to minimize as much risk and to figure out every skeleton possible that you can before you buy that firm. And as a seller, the reality is, if you want your firm to stand out, you need to go maybe read my article or go figure out how to change your firm from being a firm of you and being a firm that's centered around you as a practitioner to a business. And that's going to take some time. And if you think you're going to sell in 2-3 years, well, you better start now. It's going to take you 2 to 3 years to make changes at your firm. If most firms are like any other firm, it takes a long time to make changes. So start now. If you have a mindset of even 5 years from now, start now and make the mindset shifts now with your culture and the business processes you need to be able to prepare your firm for sale. The more you can extract yourself from the work and just become a advocate, a salesperson, a mouthpiece for your firm, the more likely you're going to get a better multiple and to be a more attractive firm to buy.
Understood. I remember, I think the world changed for me. So part of my entrepreneurial journey was working at my second accounting firm. The person who hired me in the interview was like, are you the kind of person that wants to hold on to something, or do you want to make yourself obsolete? And that was just framed even in the team structure. What they were trying to get across is there was a path, like they wanted to be obsolete from their current day-to-day and promote people up at the partnership. But I also think they dealt with a lot of former entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in their family offices. And so it was like, you kind of need to have that mindset because you're going to have to speak with people who thought about their business as a business rather than themselves. So I think it's hugely important. And it worked for me at my firm. I left the day-to-day after 3 years, right? And I only just sold out a big chunk of my stake. I'm still a shareholder, but very minority. And that was July this year. So that's
that's great.
14 years after it started, 13. Yeah, it's a long, long time ago. Anyway, couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a huge takeaway for everybody. Treat it like a business. It's not about you, and it's nothing personal. It just makes it more attractive to buy, and also makes it easier to sell. You mentioned we talked about the U shape just before, and you've talked about having a thriving remote work culture, and obviously you're living it. You got 55 folks all over the country. Given that seems to be way more of a norm, from particularly my last visit into the US last week, and everyone I spoke to, everyone's either umming and ahhing about going remote or are fully all in. What do you think is sort of the number one piece in terms of both managing a team as it moves to remote away from the office? And obviously we've had COVID, but if it's a permanent piece as you look to hire and expand with that mindset, what do you think is the most important thing?
Yeah, I think one is take advantage of the opportunity that there is a global workforce. And I actually, for 6 years of the business, never considered using a global workforce or getting access to it, and then begin doing nearshoring just a year and a half ago. So to stay competitive, now that more and more firms and more businesses are doing remote work, you got to assume that your team members are always have another opportunity that they can go after that may be better than the culture of the business that you've built, and that they're probably getting offered the opportunity to leave regularly. So make it with that assumption, you got to think about, how do you make your business a place where people do not want to leave? They want to stay. And they would think they were insane to leave, and that you have a line of people ready to jump on board with your company if somebody were to leave, or when you hire for a new role. And then secondly is finding the right partners globally, whether you start your own entity or find vendor partners that you can hire through globally. I think that's a strategy that everyone's going to think about, because the next strategy after that, which isn't here quite yet, but is probably going to be here very fast, is AI, and the reality of AI either augmenting our work and making it way faster, or replacing whole swaths of talent. And so you're going to have competitors who, I know I'm going to have competitors at some point soon that don't have any labor besides the founder, but they don't have any accounting labor because all the labor is being done by generative AI. And when that day comes, if I see that in my lifetime or see that soon and I haven't made the changes, I might be too late, because that kind of reality and value proposition for the customer base we serve is gigantic, and is going to be a real big differentiator for them. So I think taking advantage of the global workforce, since people have gone remote, into thinking through how you can leverage that to your advantage is going to be really, really key.
100%. I always viewed nearshoring or offshoring, depending on, I don't actually know the technical definition, but how you look at having a larger workforce that isn't domiciled in your country, who are experienced, allows for a couple of things. Diversity of culture, which I think is awesome. I'd bring that into the mix. But the other part is it creates space for you to be able to work on your business. And to your point, look at new tech and all the other things to actually get you prepared for the future. And that's more about working on the business allowance, again, rather than just trying to get the working in the business and just trying to give yourselves capacity so you can file more tax returns. I think it's a huge opportunity that exists right now, and it's so much easier than it used to be back in the day. So let's talk about, there was a quote from yourself around mentorship, and I have my views on this, but you quoted, the best mentor is someone you aspire to be. They inspire others around them, and that's the mentor you want to be, or want to go after, rather. How did you find your mentor, and what did you find was so important about their influence on your amazing journey to today?
Yeah, I stumbled into being mentored and didn't know that was happening at the time. I was in middle school, right? And my parents, when they came to the US, they were sponsored by a local church here in the US. And that church, like many churches in the US, have these youth groups, basically these groups that are age-based, that help keep kids out of trouble, and also teach the kids values and try to form their character, right? And this happened to be a Christian church, and I went to their youth group in middle school, and there were these adult volunteers that decided giving their time to help develop young men and women in middle school was a value to them, and to be a good role model. And so I remember this one guy named Dave Christmas, hard name to forget. His last name was
Yeah.
Christmas. And he would come to my house, pick me and my cousin up. We'd go hang out. And I think he was in his late teens, early 20s at the time. And he was just a mentor. He's like a big brother to us. Not only about walking in the Christian faith, but also just walking in life as an older man, right? Somebody that was older than us and knew how to navigate American life, something that my parents really couldn't teach me and my cousins and my siblings because they were refugees. So that was really helpful. And when I look back, I realized, oh wow, he was a mentor. That's what he was doing. I didn't think about it that way when I was a kid, when I was in middle school, but that's what he was doing. And so ever since then, almost every year, every other year, I've had an older mentor in my life that I've walked with. And it could be somebody career wise that has invested in me during the career. I remember my first CFO mentor when I got my first job out of college. He was a CFO consultant at a big accounting firm, and he hired me to join his consulting division. And he taught me everything about what it means to be a CFO. He taught me how to be a good CFO, and he didn't have to do that. That wasn't a requirement for him to do that, but he did, and he did a great job at it. And then I've also had mentors that have just walked with me as I've grown into becoming a dad and a husband, a father, try to be just a good boss and a human being, right? And you want to find older guys and gals that you can look up to and go, wow, I want to be like them. And that's what a mentor is. It's somebody that not only you want to take advice from, but you go, well, if I turn out like them, I'd not only not be ashamed of it, but I would actually be really excited if my life and my character and my demeanor was formed into their image. And so that's what mentorship really is about. I've benefited so much in that. And so now I actually try to give back of that, both in the accounting profession. I'm actually mentoring other firm owners that are early in their careers or early in their scaling of their business. And also just mentoring just general people that come across and meet me and they say, hey, look, I love to walk with you and learn how to be a better dad, learn how to be a better husband, a better friend. And that's just been so rewarding. I wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world to be that kind of person for somebody else.
Well said. I was lucky enough to have a couple of mentors as I was sort of coming up. I resonated quite close with me. Yeah, they were all older now. I think about it as well. But to your point, like turning into that person would not be a bad outcome whatsoever. I found, particularly when starting my own firm, there was the firm owner that I aspired to be, and then Cloud was brand new in 09, and I wanted to get grilled by people who I'd want to have as clients. So I had a couple of, let's call it elder people that I had known throughout my life, and I was pitching like, this is what I think it was called interactive accounting back in the day. This is what I think interactive accounting is going to be, and they would just grill me on like, what is USP? Why are you different from the person down the road? Yada yada yada, until I got it completely down and crisp. I actually was really disappointed the day where they were like, "No, I think you've nailed it." And it's just like, oh, right. So I need to go find somebody else to grill me at that point. And to your point, one of the biggest and best things I picked up from time spent, particularly in San Francisco, was the whole pay it forward notion. Mm-hmm. The amount of times that I was lucky enough to know Zendesk CEO quite well, and he would just introduce me to somebody else after me explaining a problem that I had, and sort of like, try and help me on my way. He had a lot of help coming over from the Nordics, and once again was keen to repay the favor. So love that pay it forward notion. Yeah. And thanks so much for sharing your journey and experiences. And can I ask who your mentor is today? Or you don't have to share a name, but are they a firm owner or someone just as a life ambassador, so to speak?
Yeah, just I have a couple of them actually. There is a couple that my wife and I meet with regularly, and actually they're kind of mentors for our marriage, because I've been married 17 years, and I want to get to 25. I want to get to the 25th year. And, this has probably been one of the most challenging years for us, and for a variety of reasons, including the impact of the business on our marriage, which, business impacts relationships. And so we went out and sought after a couple that we knew that had been married for a long time. And we said, if we can get to that longevity, like you guys still together, we would feel like we made it successfully. So we went with them regularly. They're a dear couple, and they've been such a blessing to us. And then there's a CFO mentor I actually get coffee with He's been a CFO at multiple, high flying companies that have gone public and all those things. And so we get coffee together as well. And we chat, and I get to learn from his life experience professionally and faith wise. He happens to be a Christian as well. So most of the mentors I do have in my life have some faith component to them. They're really holistic that way. And because that's an important part of my life, I really try to have mentors that have that component in their lives, just so I can bounce the ideas off of them of what that looks like to incorporate their faith into the work that they do.
Yeah, for sure. I completely understand that. And thanks again for sharing, and big shout out to that couple and whoever the CFO is. Thanks for helping Mike on his journey. I was going to dovetail back into another question, but I think we might finish off with a couple of rapid fire questions. And then we'd love the opportunity to hear about what's going on for you and what's happening next with yourself and Reconciled. So this is a fill in the blanks kind of thing, right? So my favorite thing to do on a vacation is
eat food.
Yeah, can I ask where was the last vacation you took and what you ate?
Does QuickBooks Connect count?
Sure. So Las Vegas and
yeah, Las Vegas, and I had Thai food. It was amazing. It was amazing Thai food. Yeah.
On the weekends, you'll find me
watching sports with my kids, or eating at a new restaurant I haven't eaten at.
Okay, I'm sensing the food piece. Very strong here. Is your idea of a good time either going to a music concert or going to a sporting event?
Going to a music concert.
Okay. What was the last concert you went to, if you remember?
If you count dance clubs as a concert, which would be my form of concert, then I was at Exodus nightclub last week in Vegas, and I saw Marshmello front row. I was the DJ Marshmello was there performing, so that's where I was.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing. Now, given we've talked about food quite a bit, and this isn't in my list, are you a chef, and what is your best thing that you can make or cook for your family?
I am an amateur chef, and I can make a killer kimchi fried rice. It is an amazing dish that I've mastered on how to make. So yes, I can make it, but that's one of the few dishes I can make really well.
Perfect. Appreciate you sharing, and I'm sure your fam loves it as well. So wrapping things up, as I talked about before, really appreciate you spending time with us. The floor is yours. We'd love to hear about anything you want to share about yourself, Michael Lee, or the Reconciled Group. Either what's happening now, or given we're almost in 2024, what's happening next year. But the floor is yours, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, so Reconciled's always looking for amazing firms to buy, especially firms that maybe are having challenges making the technology transformation they need to, and instead would like Reconciled to be the one to do that through a merger or acquisition. And we're also always talking to partners that are thinking about the future of accounting and how, with the changing landscape of accounting, we could partner with them to transform the way accounting experience that the end user, the small business customer experiences, how it could be transformed to be even better than it is today. I think most accounting firms are giving a wild disservice to the experience they're giving to their customers. And I'd like to see us, even Reconciled, become better and better and better at providing an experience that is second to none. So looking for partners, anybody on this journey that wants to work together on doing that.
Perfect. And where can people find you, mate?
Best place is LinkedIn. If you look up my name, there's a little fire emoji in the front. That's the easiest thing to know that's me. It's the real Michael Lee, the fire emoji. You can also find me on Twitter as well.
Perfect. Michael Lee, thank you so much for spending time with me today. It was great to see you and meet you for the first time in person last week. Yeah. And I hope to see you in 2024. Have a great Thanksgiving, which is later this week, and a great holiday period at the end of the year. Thanks
awesome.
again, mate.
Thanks, Guy. You too.